Hello, welcome everyone. I'm on the beautiful island of Crete by the sea, and with me right now is, who are you, sir?
A special guest. This is Terry Riggs, Mr. Riggs, UK tour guide to the rest of the world, Manhood Academy, Black Eyes TV, and the new international rites of passage, the DLA.
Thank you, Mr. T.
Yes.
I wanted to explore your thoughts on how to raise a father.
How to raise a father? It's a complex one because I don't have no children, but I have 15 godchildren. And I look at and reflect of a reverse of how I look at a father figure in forms of my father. So what I learned from that and what I learned from the children is it gives me the understanding of what a father figure is about, and the reasons why I was able to join the Manhood Academy.
Talk to me about your thoughts about your father raising you.
Okay, so in the facts of my father raising me, it's a very difficult one because as I don't know if people know out there, my father was a businessman. My mother was a hair hostess, so I didn't get that much time, but the time that I had, we kind of interacted. But for me as a single child, it found very difficult to relate. So I had to find other male figures in that situation. So first of all, I had my grandfather, who was a very strict man, who was a professor in the University of Nigeria and in Washington, DC. So when I talk about the actual father figures, it's a role in the fact that what my grandmother taught me in the fact of the rites of passage, and understanding that there is different parts of fatherhood to able to help you in your progress. But at the same time, you still have the infusion of your mother in the fact that your mum will teach you certain skills and your father will teach you another type of skill. So when that comes to manhood, that is where we glue to our fathers to able to get a better understanding of their wisdom.
Thank you, Terry. You mentioned two kind of things that stood out for me there. Went in search of other male role models.
Yeah.
And you talked about your grandmother and your mother teaching you certain rites of passage.
Yeah.
What made you? Can you take me back to that time when you felt you needed that
father role?
Yeah.
There's many times that I can say that I needed that father role, where my mother could not give me that role, and it was the togetherness in the fact that when you wanted to talk about male topics or male kind of situations, even to talk about the male health and certain things, it was much more difficult to talk to a woman, but to talk to a man. But my grandmother, who was a very balanced woman, it was able to show me things and put me in the direction of my uncles, my cousins, and to able to get that information. But with my father, because my father wasn't really there, when it was time for him to be there, I tried to get as much as possible. But I'm not going to go too deep into it because certain things eroded into that relationship because of his absence, him not being there, and not giving me that close relationship.
It seems to me that, and correct me if I'm wrong, from when you were a young age, you had it taught within you from your grandmother, from your mother, to be open to explore what you needed, because many young people don't actually know what they need, and Some go on different journeys. Some go on a rampage. Some go within themselves. It seems to me that however you were brought up, you were brought up with the knowledge that, and in the belief that there's something that you needed that you couldn't get from your grandmother or your mother, but you needed something different.
Okay. From what as I said, like being me close to my father, and the one thing that always resonates to me in my father, and I will always say this, because we used to go to football games and things like that, and he broke down something when we was at a football game, and he said, look at the pitch, right? What would you rather be in life, the football player or the manager or the spectator? And as you know me already as a young boy, yeah, I want to be the football player, yeah, I want to kick the ball. But my dad said, you know what? If you're the football player, how do you know who's coming from behind? Why do you think you have a manager there to able to create a strategy? Why do you think you have spectators that can see two sides of the pitch so they know what's coming from behind? So it becomes a technical game because the manager is able to observe his environment to know what type of strategy. A player is always going to go forward. Most games you see, a player doesn't go backwards, he goes forward. The only time he goes backwards is he runs backwards to defend. But he never really sees what's behind.
And you mentioned that you're the godfather of 15 children.
15 children.
I salute you. Now, the question that goes with that is, what are the qualities that make someone want you to be the next in line for their children?
It's observation. I'm swarmed to children in the fact that what I've gone through is my testimony for children to able to pick up that story and able to build themselves, because not everyone's going to have a father or not everyone's going to have a mother, but able to have that independence at an age and able to be open to what your mother says and to what your parents say, because there is knowledge and jewels within the conversation. But if you're arrogant to it, you're not going to be able to hear or see or even feel them jewels that has been given to you.
How do you protect those jewels, that knowledge that you have,
Okay.
those qualities? How do you ensure, as an international person, how do you ensure that you stay grounded to be the best godfather that you can be? And I'm going to ask you another question after that. So, how do you ensure that you protect those qualities?
The quality, how to protect them qualities is actually to be yourself. And you know, children today are sometimes misunderstood, as well as adults have been misunderstood, because you have to be patient and listen. And sometimes when we're dealing with our young ones, we have to have that barrier, but be that friend in the forms of discussion. So you try to relate to what they are, and the way I am able to do that is to get my inner child to able to relate to them. And if I'm not in that form of relating, I tell them, teach me, because the one thing that we know in life is that our children are our real teachers. Because before you became a parent, if you didn't have a child, how would they teach you? So for me to be one step ahead is to allow these children to able to teach me, and we have these discussions, so that even when I do have a child, or if I ever have a child, I'm prepared for it in the fact that these children have taught me their skills.
And can you tell me what type of interaction you have with your godchildren?
Okay, so in the facts of my work and the things that I do, depending on the age group and where they're at. So if we're looking at the young ones, I might go and say, yeah, let's go to the museum and let's go and do some hide and seek let's go and find out where the black people are in the museum, and let's count how many black people we find. So we make it as fun as possible. And the more fun that they have it, and they giggle about it, they're excited to run around and, oh yeah, I found something, and things like that. So the more you bring that, the more that they start to learn. And then they'll say, who's that? What, you know what I mean? I'll say to them, oh, read it and let me hear you. So that brings out the reading skills. And then when they talk about you're able to embed even that historical fact of someone in that museum, in that child's mind.
And can you describe to me some of the thoughts and emotions that were going through your mind and your body when you first knew that you were going to become a godfather?
Okay. What's in my mind, as I said, the connection between me and children, me and just people, because, you know, I love the black family. And the black family is a very powerful family. And the more you get to understand it in forms of the household, how the household works, in forms of back in the day when you had someone that done the washing, you had someone that did the gardening, you know, that economic system within that household, that joy that was within that household. And when I was a child, as an only child, when I used to go with my cousins, I used to have so much fun, but the problem was, when I go home, I'm on my own. So I started to see them value. So when I'm engaging with these young ones, I get a high adrenaline, and that brings out my inner youth. Like, let's go and do something, or let's engage, or, you know, just go to a little tinsel town, or, you know, have fun. Mm-hmm. Just be yourself. Let it go. There's no discipline or sophisticated way to dealing with these children, but to be open-minded, that they can feel that they can share with you.
Okay. That open-mindedness, that energy, is so important for a child.
Yeah.
If you have faced this, it'd be great to know. What I want to know is how do you, or how have you dealt with, or how will you deal with an issue with one of your godchildren which is at odds with how their parents may think?
You see? And this is the one thing. Parents are always going to be parents, right? And certain parents are going to be strict. But, you know, Uncle Terry will always be there in the fact that I would tap into their creativity. And I want to know, what do they enjoy doing? What do they like? What's the kind of things that they've observed and wanted to do? So it's able to understand that child, and for me to able to break it down to the parent, to try and see if we can create a solution. Because one thing that a lot of parents will do, if a parent wants to be a doctor and then doesn't be a doctor, then they might suppress that doctorship onto their child. But then that may not be the child's creativity. And then this is where you're going to start to have conflicts in many different ways. But if you're able to tap into that creativity of that child can be an artist, a great artist. That child can be a great musician. That child can be a great, whatever that child wants to do in its creativity, is able to advance it for that child to able to flourish.
When that child is not flourishing.
Okay, if the child is not flourishing, then there is an altercation in the fact that we have to find out what are the situations, what is the environment that child has been brought up on. If the child's had a missing father, then these are sometimes where I step in, and this is most of the reasons why I end up being a godfather to that child, because they want someone to talk to. And sometimes when the father's missing or a mother's missing, it's not as easy as it can be. And I can never replace their father, and I can never replace their mother. But I can always be there for them for anything that they need in that situation.
Sacrifice. what does that word mean to you as a godparent, also in relation to your mother and father?
Okay. We can always, one word I always say, or a sentence, we can always agree to disagree in the things of certain things in life. And it's not all things that you must do or you should be able to do, because in forms of sacrificing, it's what's better good for the both of you. Because we seem to use this plural as I. It's not always about me, and it's not always about you or them, but it's about a collective. And this is why I keep on adamant on this black family, because when we look at certain things and we look at the end goal, there's certain things that you may have to sacrifice to get to that goal as a family. So there's some things have to be pulled back, even if the job is making me loads of money. But at the end of the day, if it's destroying my family, why am I going to stick with that? So when you look at with me and my father and my mother, they never really sacrificed anything. So then what happens? I become neglected. Because then it's not about me, it's about what they want and what they want to do. And that can be very damaging. But because I had backbones of other family, i.e. my grandmother and my great-grandmother, it was something that they were able to teach me to allow things, to let things go. Because if I don't let it go, it can be very damaging to the relationship to my parents.
In this episode, we're going to concentrate on you as a godparent.
Godparent.
But in the next episode, I'd like to explore how you were raised and how you were raised to become the man you are today.
Oh yeah, that's a big topic there, man.
Right.
Big gratitude to Mr. A, for interviewing me. And when we get to the second one, we would actually talk about that, and I was able to include that in my journey, in the fact of what's going to be happening in the future.
Okay. Last couple of questions. The last question. As a godparent, it's a vital role. It's a role that the parents look upon their friends and family and see who can we rely on?
Yeah.
Who do we trust enough with our child?
Yeah.
Do you, if you do, what relationship do you have with their godmother of your 15 godchildren?
Okay, the godmothers. That's a very difficult one, because to have a relationship with a godmother, I may not know the godmother in the fact that we have that relationship or that bond. And that comes into the facts of the parent. Because if the parent might have a godmother, and then a couple of years down the line they're not in contact with that godmother. So sometimes I might remind them that I'm not the only godfather here, so you can always do that. But as I said, I'm a person that if when it comes to the children, I've got a weak heart to that. So for me, it's looking at the situation and what is needed, because not all females I can help in many different ways.
So the question I'll put to you, and you don't have to answer it now, you can sit,
Yeah.
or you can answer it. Mm-hmm. 15 godchildren. I think this one's better.
100%.
15 godmothers.
100%.
They may not be in contact with the parents
Yeah.
as tight as what they were when the child was
Yeah.
born. Do you want that sole responsibility of godparent, or will you co-godparent?
It all depends on every situation. Would I take the responsibility depending on the circumstances? Because there is a mother and a father. If both mother and fathers weren't there, then the possibility is that we will reach out to the godmother if she wants to take responsibility. But I'm always open to the circumstances and seeing what we can do in that situation. Because, as I said, I have a life of my own, but at the same time, if there is certain circumstances that, let's say, for instance, the parents have gone, then I will step into that role. That's not a problem for me.
100%, and from just knowing you just for 1 week, I know that you're a man who would.
Yeah.
Parents are still there. Parents are going through a very, very, very rough time. The question will be, how far do you and the godmother step in?
How far?
Yeah.
When the situation when the child reaches out, because most of the time it is the child that reaches out, or the mother and father can't deal with the situation, so they want a second input. But because I'm already close to that child, the most probabilities that they will call me is very strong.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Peace and blessings, Mr. Riggs, Terry Riggs, every time on AJTV.